Welcome to Wildcat Science with Mrs. Haugo. This is Advanced Science and we're in our water unit and we are starting our third section, Why is water the basis of life? So one of the first reasons water is the basis of life is ice is less dense than water, so ice will float. So what is the big deal? So please write these things down. Ice floats and therefore insulates the water and the life below. If ice didn't float, lakes and oceans would freeze from the bottom up, and many would freeze solid and no life would live in them. So, if ice was like everything else and the solid form was more dense, it would go to the bottom and then the lakes would freeze from the bottom up. And then you can't have anything living in there because they would just freeze and die. So oceans and lakes couldn't sustain any permanent life. So life on Earth as we know it would not be the same because lakes and oceans are just filled with life. So as it is, the ice floats on the top and then it insulates it. So it's actually, there's a less of a temperature change in the water than the air above. Also, life evolved in the oceans. So if ice didn't float, then life on Earth wouldn't exist because it wouldn't have had a chance to evolve. If anything that was a proto-life died every year, it just wouldn't work. So yay that ice is less dense than water. And you can see also it provides habitat for penguins. So a second reason that water is the basis of life is that water moderates and stabilizes temps on Earth so that life can exist. So another reason why you are alive that you probably haven't thanked water for today. So water has a high specific heat because of, fill in the blank, all those hydrogen bonds. So it takes a lot of energy to heat up water. So if it takes a lot of energy to heat up water, bodies of water release or absorb a lot of energy with only a small change in temperature. So if you have an ocean that becomes 1 degree Celsius hotter, it has absorbed a lot of energy. If you have a lake that becomes 1 degree colder, it has released a lot of energy for that small change in temperature. And we know that air temperature varies quite a bit more than water temperature. So if in places that are by oceans, the water or any other large body of water or just a body of water like a lake, the water temperature is going to heat up more slowly and cool down more slowly than the air temperature. So Earth is 71% water, so water keeps the temperature ranges on Earth within limits that permit life. So the fact that Earth has so much water means that a lot of energy has to be absorbed or released for a small change in temperature. So the temperature on Earth is a lot more moderate than it would be if there was no water. So because there is so much water on Earth, then the temperature ranges on Earth allow there to be life here. So, thanks, water. So also, we could scale that down, not just on the Earth side, but into one organism. So plants and animals are mostly water. And that allows our bodies to resist wide changes in temperature. So what happens if your body temperature gets too hot or too cold? And what do you think the human tolerance is of body temperatures? So, mammals and birds have a very small window of body temps in which they can live. So if your body temperature gets below 95 degrees, you are hypothermic and your body just starts shutting down, and after about 90 you die. And above 105, again, your body starts shutting down and you will die. That's a 10-degree difference. That's not very much. So you know that the air temperature varies much wider than that. So let's say it is like negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter, and let's say 100, let's just say 100 in the summer. So that's a 120-degree difference that you can live in, and your body still is able to maintain its temperature within that very small range so that you don't die. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that your body has so much water in it, and we know that it's going to take a lot of energy to change the temperature of that water. One adaptation that many organisms have is evaporative cooling, and humans definitely take advantage of this. So evaporative cooling is when a liquid evaporates the surface that it was on cools down. So evaporative cooling is when the liquid evaporates and then the surface it was on cools down. So if you need to add some extra words in there to help you remember what that means while you're going back and look at your notes, feel free to do that. Okay, so sweat. We use sweat for evaporative cooling. When the sweat evaporates from the skin, the energy that was needed to make the liquid water into water vapor goes from your skin into the water molecule, and then that water molecule is water vapor, so it goes off in the air, and then that heat goes into the environment and your body is cooler. So let's say that you were sweating. The heat energy from your body is going to go into that liquid sweat, and it's going to make those molecules move faster, and they're going to evaporate, and now those little water vapor molecules are in the atmosphere, and the energy for the sweat to go from liquid to gas left your body, and your body is cooler. So that is how the ability to sweat allows you to not overheat and die. So let's look at a picture of this. So you have a sweat gland, and then you have your liquid water, and then it's taking heat from your body to move the liquid water from liquid to change it into a gas, and then that gas molecule takes some of that energy with it, and your skin feels cooler. So the third reason that water is the basis of life is that organisms depend on cohesion and adhesion, and we know that water has high cohesion and adhesion. All right, a quick review. Cohesion is what? And it happens because of. Adhesion is what? And it happens because of. Capillary is what? And it happens because of. Surface tension is what? And it happens because of. You don't have to write these down if you know them. If you forgot them, you should write them down again. So cohesion is when two water molecules stick together, and it's because of the hydrogen bonds make it so water molecules stick together. Adhesion is when a water molecule sticks to another surface, and it often has to do with the hydrogen bonds and a polar surface. So capillary action is when water can move up against gravity through a thin tube, and it happens through the actions of cohesion and adhesion working together allow that water to move up the tube. And surface tension is the amount of force needed to break the surface of the water, and water has a high surface tension because of all those hydrogen bonds and the cohesion where those molecules want to stick together. All right, so cohesion and adhesion are necessary for water transport in plants. And let's talk about what we mean about that for a little bit. If you recall, we talked about plants and water transport and xylem and phloem with Hank Green in biology. So So cohesion and adhesion are needed for water to flow up xylem vessels against gravity. So as you know, plants, like trees, large plants, will take water from the ground and go all the way up the trunk into the leaves in the canopy. So how does that water get all the way up into the leaves? So a couple of things. One of them is evapotranspiration, pressure, adhesion, cohesion, and capillary action. So you have a leaf, and it has stomata that allows water to evaporate out and carbon dioxide to leave and oxygen to come in. So those are holes in the leaf, little tiny ones, microscopic. So the water molecule evaporates out of the leaf, and then cohesion pulls, when that one leaves, it pulls the next molecule on it down the leaf. And so then that one moves through the vein of the leaf, and then the one that was next to it gets pulled and pulled and pulled. So all the way through the leaf, all the way through the branch, all the way through the trunk, all the way down to the roots. So adhesion and capillary action and cohesion mean that when one molecule leaves, all the other molecules get pulled like in a chain, so that the water moves from the soil into the roots, into the stem or the trunk, whatever kind of plant it is, up into the branches, and then the leaves. So please write this down. Water molecules evaporate out of the leaf. Cohesion causes molecules to tug on the next molecule in the leaf, then the next molecules in the trunk, then the next molecules all the way down to the root, and adhesion and capillary action are also involved. So why do we care? The water flow in xylem allows plants to be taller than 1 inch and survive without constant water. So so plants that are non-vascular, if a vascular plant has the xylem and the phloem, and non-vascular plants like mosses don't. So non-vascular plants are all really tiny. You can think about how tall moss is. So if we didn't have the cohesion and the adhesion and the capillary action and water being able to flow up against gravity through the xylem in plants, then all of our plants would be 1 inch tall, and they would need basically a constant supply of water. And I assume you can imagine how that we would be missing out on a ton of plants. So if we don't have a lot of plants, then we don't have a lot of animals that can eat plants, or the animals that eat the animals that eat plants. So our world would have a lot fewer plants, and it would have a lot fewer animals, and a lot fewer of us. Like, we couldn't be around because we eat a lot. So if there's no cohesion, there aren't enough plants to feed the animals. Also, certain organisms use surface tension to their advantage. If you remember, our water striders definitely do that. Also, clouds. Clouds form and rain falls in raindrops because of cohesion. So we know that those little water molecules are attracted to each other, and so they would rather be next to each other than like off on their own. And so when you get enough little water droplets together, then you have a raindrop. And when a raindrop gets big enough, the force of gravity is enough that it just falls down as rain. So no cohesion, no rain, and organisms are dependent on the water cycle. Let's take a look at the water cycle. Just basically there's evaporation and then condensation into water droplets, and the water droplets come together, and when they get big enough it rains, and then that replenishes the water on the earth. And we know that plants and therefore animals depend on rain. We're going to pause there for today. In our next video we are going to learn about water being the solvent of life and how organisms depend on pHs being constant. I will see you then.